And you talked about the dark factory, right? And it's an interesting concept because I think this is where it's going to be painful. You're going to have this one person that puts all the requirements in.
Yeah.
Let's say that you as an agency, you're running this, you have this dark factory for software development, you have a client that maybe puts all their requirements in. It goes back in the end. You, as the owner of the agency, you're liable for everything that happened in between.
Yeah.
But you're responsible that the requirements are met, that the code doesn't have security issues, that all the code went out properly. And you need to have a lot of faith in AI. If something goes wrong, well, you can blame the AI, but as the agency owner, I think you're responsible for this.
Yeah. Actually, let me kickstart this with something. So I woke up with the email, and I remember that I have this session now with you, and I woke up with this email. It's a sales pitch. And I even forgot what was it. I didn't even read it through completely, but the opening was so bad, and it's not the only one. The reason why I decided to mention this one today is because it's like one of countless of those emails and LinkedIn messages that were not drafted by human beings.
Yeah.
I don't know how AI was trained to communicate, but it's not human, right? So, so for one, you see they used AI, and for two, they didn't teach it well.
Yeah.
And let me open actually with with this one. So I mentioned these three things that I'd like to revolve around our conversation today around, and that's like your coaching that you do with tech leaders mainly, if I understand correctly, your journey from corporate to entrepreneurial life, and your AI involvement. And so we'll do backwards. Actually, let's start with your AI involvement in the company that's called Tairi. So, how do you see all of this like hype that's been happening with how should we actually adopt AI? Let's start with that. It's a philosophical question, but I think it's a meaningful one to kickstart with.
And I love that question because I don't think anyone has the answer right now, right? If you're listening to and you just talked about the sales pitches that you get or what you read on LinkedIn, right? We should all be using AI for everything in our lives, including almost filling out the dishwasher, right? That's what you read on LinkedIn and all the spam emails you get. And then everybody says if you just prompt it good enough, then it's going to do everything for you exactly the way that you asked it for. And I disagree with that, right? I mean, I've been like most of us, I've been using AI for years and years, and I like to think I've gotten really good at prompting. If it writes a text for me, it has these big markdown files that says, this is exactly what your voice is, Mark. And then I ask it to write a text, and it keeps changing it back. It knows my voice, right? And it reads this markdown file on every single account. It keeps changing it back to these little AI words that they just sneak in, or these little AI
Yeah.
sentences that just sneak back into the wording without I've explicitly told it not to. And it's not, I mean, it's not like there's M dashes everywhere, right? And there's like
Yeah.
these big, but still it's the same set of words that you see just appearing over and over. So it's not perfect, but it can do a lot of useful stuff. So how we use it, how I use it, I mean, we also have a bunch of software engineers that are working from the Philippines for different clients of ours. Of course, they use it to do software engineering. And I was talking to one of the companies that we work for. He has this SaaS application, and we help him with the building of that. And he says, ever since she's been using, she's using Copilot, GitHub Copilot for the development, her output has gotten much better. Quality is much better. It's faster. And I also need to do less quality reviews on the code that comes back, right? So just because this one developer started using AI, her output got more, and it just got qualitatively better. Of course, she was not like a rock star developer, but she's a solid developer, right? With 5-7 years of experience. So I think it helps almost everyone. I use it for almost everything in my own job, but just for fun because I don't do software development myself. I've just done this trial for 2 months. Can I develop my full own SaaS application using just AI? And I'm a technical person, right? I know a lot of technology. People say it's easy, right? And you can you can go to Lovable and just develop an application. It'll be done in a couple of hours. I tried Lovable. It's true. You can develop something. Developing a true SaaS application is just so different. I thought that'd be done in a couple of weeks. I spent more than 2 months developing it, doing all the integration, getting through all of the defects that were in there, implementing a lot of these technical interfaces, right? I mean, I have technical interface with Google and Stripe and Microsoft, and it's a lot more work than you would think. And I'm very happy that I have the technical background to help me. So yes, AI is a very useful tool in certain situations, but it still requires a lot of human oversight and human judgment and human corrections. And even when I'm developing, I'm finding that I'm continuously just reading its thought patterns because a lot of times, like two-thirds in, it just goes off script and it goes and does something that I didn't want it to do. And this is called code. I just need to pull it back and say, you shouldn't have done that, but you actually need to read through what it's doing because otherwise it just goes off script and it goes and does something completely different. So
Yeah.
still, and this is like, right, called code, opens 4.8. It's the latest of the latest. It needs very careful oversight as to what it does, the steps that it takes, and it just tends to go off script and does strange things all the time.
Yeah. And you said it's happening with Cloud Code.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, cloud, and I have the Max subscription, so I
Yeah.
use the Opus 4.8 for almost everything just because I can, and it still happens.
Where does that happen mostly? Is it like generative part of the content side or just coding or
Both.
both? Both.
I
Okay.
think it's really both. I mean, and that's it just thinks up these ideas halfway through in its reasoning. That was
Hmm.
just completely different from what you thought it was going to do, right? And that's where it just tends to go off script sometimes, for me at least.
Interesting. I did have that experience a while back. Then I figured how you can actually not tweak, but I mean, you can be as concrete as possible, as in detailed as possible in the skill file.
Yeah,
With well-crafted, drafted skill file. I think I can't remember that it really did that to me recently. OpenAI, I can't really rely on it these days.
yeah. No, it's
Uh,
I moved away beginning of the year, probably.
yeah. So speaking of adoption right now, um, do you think there is a philosophy that tech leaders need to follow or should follow in order for AI adoption to be successful in the
I do.
organization?
And I love what you said. You talked about AI adoption, and I think there's a big difference between I'd say the smaller companies that have a real CTO that's like doing hardcore software development, right? Those most of those teams have already embedded AI into the whole team, right? I don't know a lot of software development teams that work for smaller companies or agencies that don't use AI in their teams. And those CTOs use AI all the time, and they probably know a lot more about it than most of us. And I think there's very little AI adoption to be done there because they're probably ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
You get all these other organizations, right? And those are like, let's say, those with an IT team. So let's say medium to large size corporations. And I think those are treating AI very differently. They all have Microsoft Copilot. Most of them have Microsoft Copilot. They don't have their Cloud Codes, or I think very few people there have Cloud Code. And they treat it either as a chat GPT replacement, or they think we're going to do these cool pilot projects somewhere in the business to see how we can successfully use AI. So they're going to go and talk to their sales team and they're going to say, how can we actually use an AI tool, an AI module, maybe in Salesforce, maybe something else in our sales processes. And I think what's really going wrong there is that a lot of the leaders themselves, so the CIO, CIO minus one, but even like at board level, don't use AI to the fullest themselves. They don't have VS Code open every day. They don't use Cloud Code every day. They just use maybe Copilot to draft a couple of slides or to summarize an email or to write an email. They've never gone in depth by themselves. I'm a very big believer of leading by example. And I don't think you can change an organization or change how an organization works if you don't lead by example first. And I think that's where I think most leaders should go today. And then tech leaders, but also non-tech leaders like CEOs, CFOs, is just leading by example and showing how you could use AI in everyday work.
Right, but do you think there is more down on the earth look at how we can and where to adopt AI when it comes to Like let's take for example, I don't know, like your company. So you're
Mhm.
doing software development for
Yeah,
your customers, and then so AI came along like a few years ago, and you were testing it, and you were not sure if it can actually do some meaningful work. And right now, like in the span of uh, I'll dare to say 1 year. But yeah, definitely. So
yeah.
in the past 12 months, we've seen tremendous improvement in how I'm gonna say AI in general, but like there are these few big ones that we actually use for more complex work. So we saw this tremendous increase in performance, in accuracy, in quality of work in general. So we are not even able to predict how 5 years from now will look like. A year, maybe. And so you're now, like a few years ago, you were probably at the point where you can actually adopt and use AI in your workflow with your customers on different projects. And then, what was the framework for your deciding process? Was it we will do anything we can to automate, or we will use AI to, let's say, to replace some creative thinking that we can implement in work. So these are two different schools of thought, essentially.
Yeah.
Do we use it to replace our creative thinking, or automate everything that's like, bothersome, time consuming, and just boring? Or we do both? And in which percentage?
And for me personally, I do both. Right. And that's for different reasons. I started out, I think, like most of us with ChatGPT, right? Three years ago. I forget how long ago it was, three and a half years ago.
Maybe even four, man. It's like
Yeah.
time's
Just
flying.
just playing around with it because it was fun, right? And that's all that it was in the beginning. And I wrote some blogs probably back in 24, and I had some images in there, and I look at those images and I'm like, oh my God, how terrible were those images? How did I ever post those on the internet? But I left them up just to show the spirit of the time. They were just incredibly ugly. And that's, I mean, the changes have been incredible over the years. And I think now personally I'm at this, we can automate almost anything. So I'm going to automate anything that's just a recurring job, where it makes sense. So I mean, I'm very much in a people job. I coach people, I have clients, I lead developers. My personal relationships are not based on AI, and they never will be, right? It doesn't make sense because that's the value that I add is the personal relationships and the human connection. So it's never going to go in there. In my accounting, in my content publishing, in collecting, for example, statistics there, getting that all back in a lot of the software development that we do, the more that I can automate the repetitive, boring work, the better it is. So I think where we used to hire maybe an EA somewhere, an assistant somewhere to do a lot of that boring, repetitive work, we can just go and automate a lot of that now. So, and I think that's helpful. I also said creative work. Personally, I'm a tech guy. I've been in technology for 30 years. I wouldn't define myself as the most creative, out of the box thinker out there in the world. I mean, I know a lot. I have a lot of experience. I've seen tremendous amount of technology over the years, but I'm not the most creative thinker. And I also just love asking it, whatever it is, to think out of the box for me, to just give me other ideas than the ideas that I didn't have yet. So there's a lot of automation, and also a lot of data analysis of like my past, everything that I've done in the past. But I also love using it for just give me different ideas that I didn't think of yet.
Cool. What do you think were major mistakes companies or leaders in different companies made while working on the plan to how to and where to adopt the AI?
I think it's probably what I said before, but I think the biggest people, I think there's a couple of things. So first, I think they go in and they are looking for immediate ROI. And I get that. If you're running a, let's say, 5,000 people company and you add, doesn't matter, ChatGPT, Copilot, something on top, it's $240, euros, whatever, per user per year, right? And
Yeah.
with 5,000 people, that adds up. So it's expensive to roll any AI out to 5,000 people. And they're always looking for a return on investment. So there's often these discussions like, should we do this? Can we do this? Maybe just take the small private group and we don't do it for everyone, which I understand and it makes sense because there is no ROI. Still, I do believe that it's almost the cost of doing business today. And it's almost something that you have to do because people are going to use AI. I mean, almost everybody that I know use AI. And if they're not going to use your Copilot, ChatGPT, they're going to just toss their business data into their own, hopefully paid for license of Cloud Code or ChatGPT or whatever it is that they're using. It's just going to go somewhere else. So I think the first one is you just need to enable people to use this so they don't go and do other things where you maybe don't want them to do it. That's one. I think the second one is just, it's the one that I said before, it's leading by example. You can't just give people a tool and say, here's your new AI tool, good luck with this, without showing the examples of where it's actually worked, right? Showing, I don't know, in a town hall, maybe what a sales team successfully did with it, or showing what a factory did success. Not showing, you have all these ground level initiatives probably somewhere that are either manufacturing or in sales or in finance. They don't show up anymore. So actually showing the results of the other teams, what people have done, is just so much more helpful. And also leadership using it themselves for their own work and just showing that off. I think is incredible. Because the third way, and that's what I see in a lot of bigger corporates, they see AI as the next tool set. Like they did with maybe a Salesforce or with another tool set. You just take a tool set and you go and figure out a small business case somewhere. You build a small pilot project and you deploy it in a small pilot project, and that's it. And then you're done with the project and you can move on to the next project. And they treat it like a standard tool like that without, making it widely available or bigger available, or seeing that it has applications like we talked about almost everywhere for almost every person. So I think actually changing the culture of the company, that people start to think that, can we do this with AI first? Can we automate this? Versus just, it's another tool that we're going to use and we're going to add to our tool belt. It's a cultural change before everything else, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with it. The reason behind this question was I was actually hoping maybe you saw this trend. I mean, I'm sure you saw it, but a lot of big companies, especially in consulting space, dropped huge number of people for the AI, and mostly, if I'm not mistaken, it was mostly in customer success teams and the stuff that was easy to automate even a few years ago. Well, I mean, not easy, but definitely easier than automating your coding team. My personal philosophy, and the reason why I ask, is I think this will backfire at some point, because firing 30% of your workforce to replace with AI is either bold, stupid, or there is a decision behind it that lies on a lot of data that we don't really have. So yeah, what's up with that?
My dad, so full disclosure, I worked for Accenture for 10 years. So I've seen that, and after that, I worked in a big company and in an IT leadership position for the next 5, 6 years. So I've seen this big corporate world and the outsourcing world for a very long time, working in it for over 20 years. Outsourcing to these companies, right? And it's Accenture, it's Wipro, it's TCS, it's HCL, it's all these big companies, is mostly done with repetitive standard work. So it was customer service support. It was like standard financial operations. It was standard IT operations. A lot of the manual repetitive work that needed to be done is what was outsourced to cheaper wage countries. And I think that was the business model. That's exactly the kind of work that can now be automated. So if you look at a company like Accenture, for example, they have these very high-end consultants that help with a sales strategy or go-to-market strategy or financial reconciliation projects, right? That's incredible added value. And I don't think that that's going to go away anytime soon. They also have these outsourcing centers, BPO outsourcing centers in India and all over the world, but they do this very simple, repetitive manual labor. And I think that part is at risk because, like we talked about, you can automate so much more today than you could 5 years ago. And I think that work is at risk. So, but I think right now, just saying we're going to fire 30% of our people because AI is going to replace it, I don't think that's going to make sense. I think figure out first what you can replace, how you can replace it, actually go and automate it because it's not all straightforward. And like you said, we know what's possible now. We have no idea what's going to be possible in a year. And then over time, I'm sure you can reduce the number of people.
Yeah. But I mean, is that the goal, replacing people or allowing to be more efficient? There's one thing, sorry, before
Yeah,
you continue, there's this one thing that I think falls neatly into place when you say it like this. Um, don't you think it's better to use what you have and do more with it, or do the same with less?
yeah.
It's
And I think the answer is clearly it's both. So I think we're going to see from this, and I don't know what the future is going to look like, right? So I don't have a crystal ball, and like you said, I can't tell what AI is going to be able to do a year from now, let alone in 5 years. So I don't have a crystal ball, but I think the answer is going to be both. There is a lot of manual, repetitive, boring work that I used to do, probably you used to do,
yeah,
and that these big
I still
companies
do it.
have to
I
do,
love it.
right? It's like booking my invoices. I have invoices. I make invoices for my client. I receive invoices. Those all have to be booked together. There's so much
Yeah.
manual work that goes into running a business, and I think a lot of that is going to go away. Hopefully, is going to go away. Still, you're going to need people that automate that stuff, but it's a step up the ladder, right? It's almost like we have this new industrial revolution where we're doing less of the manual labor and more of it gets automated. And I think that leads to the second part. A lot of people say that people are not going to have jobs anymore, right? And I think that's the exact same discussion that we had 150 years ago in the Industrial Revolution, or right, we had all these people in factories, and we had all these people working on the land, and we were going to automate all that, and then we're going to run out of jobs. And I think we're just going to see a next growth in GDP. We're going to be able to do more because we can automate more. So I'm not a big believer of because AI is now coming, all of the work's going to go away and there's going to be no work left. I'm a big believer of people are always going to find more that they can do, add more value, and create more. And I think AI is incredible for doing that
Okay, that's interesting thing you just said. You're a big believer in it. So why are you not certain?
because nobody can predict the future. I mean,
Yeah.
I have no idea what's going to happen, right? I mean, if we look at just all the things that happened this year, even in geopolitics, I would never have predicted any of that. So
Right, but I mean, I'm not even talking short term. So short term, a lot of turmoil is going to happen. So, and we are already living through that turmoil already. But long term, you mentioned something interesting, and I have to go back to this conversation that I had with a friend of mine and with a few friends actually. So you mentioned industrial revolution, and a lot of labor is going to be replaced or automated, whatever. So, and we had this conversation probably 150 whatever years ago, and even before that. So here's the thing. In all previous cases, and this is actually a statement that was made by a friend of mine that I had this conversation for a time, George, and he mentioned in all those previous cases, like steam machine, then you had like combustion engine, you name it, whatever it was, one after the other. It was all replacing a manual human labor. This
yeah,
is the first time that we are replacing creative work. And that's scary because it's different. Now I am tempted to say I was certain that this will just create new different jobs, like with coffee machine.
yeah,
50, 60, whatever, 100 years ago, you had a company and you had like what is called the Mad Men, right? The show Mad Men, maybe you watch it. So it doesn't matter. Anyways, like in mid 20th century, you had a company, big one, and then you had like different people who were making coffee, um, cooking meals and whatnot. So let's keep our focus on making coffee. So you had this one person who was making coffee for everyone, and then there was a coffee machine.
yeah,
And they were like, oh my God, so all of these people who are making coffee, they're going to be fired. So they weren't fired, they were given a chance or opportunity, maybe not themselves, but some other generations, they were given the opportunity to be more do more meaningful work by creating these machines, maintaining them, selling them, and whatnot. So, like dozens, maybe 100 different times more did we actually gained in this transition. But right now, what's happening? Cre Creative thinking and creative work is replaced. So now we are actually pulling ourselves back and doing more manual labor because now AI can, do our coding, write blogs, content, make videos, make pictures, make music, and etc., etc. Right. So it's different. It's not like I'm certain it's going to create new jobs because I mean it will,
Mhm.
but I don't think it's going to be more new jobs comparing to how much we actually lost. You know, I don't know. It's crazy,
Yeah,
scary.
I'm gonna stick with my positive outlook. I still believe in that, right?
Mine's not negative. Sorry, I have to interrupt you. Mine is just I'm not sure. This is the first time that this is happening, and I don't know where it's gonna go, but it's different.
So I think that there's a couple of things that are happening, and we're starting to see it here in the Netherlands already. There is going to be a shortage of labor, right?
Hmm.
And in the Netherlands, that's already starting to be a problem. We have more and more people that are older and older, and the number of people coming in is lower and lower.
So you're
If you look
saying
at the
labor in general is
labor in
is the problem.
general, right?
Okay.
In general, across the country, right? We have a shortage, and it's growing a shortage of labor. And the percentage of the population that actually is able to work is shrinking, right? The 20 to 65-ish, that's a shrinking percentage of the population versus what it was 30, 40 years ago. And this is not happening in the Netherlands, this is happening all across the world. Second part, if you see our global population, yes, it's still rising, but if you look at the graphs, it's going to level off somewhere between 2040 to 2070. We're probably going to see peak population on the world, and it's going to stop growing after that. So we're not going to have endless labor forever, right? I think that that's also something that's going
Hmm.
to stop, and we're going to see, and we still have a lot of need for labor. I mean, if we look at what you just said about the coffee machine, I love that. Yes, there is a coffee machine that makes coffee. I actually worked for a big coffee company for 6 years. There's people that need to go clean those machines on a daily basis because they're not going to keep operating if you don't clean them every day. There's repair people that need to go and replace spare parts on them. They drive with their little vans all across the country just to repair the machines. Just because you have a coffee machine doesn't mean that the problem is fixed. There's still, it's manual labor. I get that. So I think that's one. Two, I do believe that people really are going to value humanity more than they do today. I mean, you said in the beginning about the AI slop, right? The AI words that we see everywhere. I read that. Um, I personally, I don't listen to AI generated podcasts. I don't. I enjoy watching AI videos just because of seeing how fancy they're made, but I enjoy just seeing people on the screen acting.
Yeah,
Uh, and I think people are going to, at least for now, maybe until AI gets good enough, I can't predict that. People are going to value other people more and human relationships more.
it's already happening. I have to
Sorry?
jump in. It's rude of me totally, but I have to jump in. So it's already happening. I'm hoping to interview, or rather to talk to on one of the next episodes with a guy who's actually working on creating environment for it's like no AI by policy, right? It's creating a space for creative minds to be themselves, and a place where we will not, or rather, that's the idea, will not be taking into question whether something was AI generated, was it accurate, was it human behind it, and so on. So it's already happening, in a sense.
And I can imagine, right? Because we, in the end, we live as human beings. We live and we thrive by relationships with other human beings, not with computers, right? I mean, I enjoy tinkering with the computer as much, maybe more than the next guy, but we all need human relations, and I don't think that's going to wane. We're going to value those, I'd say, more and not less in the future.
For sure. Did you hear about the dark factory pattern?
Yes, I've seen that. I actually know some companies that are trying to. So, Dark Factory is basically, yeah, I come from a lot of the consumer products. Like I said, I work in a coffee company. I've worked in some other companies. I've seen those production factories. I've been in a lot of those factories. There's actually this ongoing pattern to make them, what to say, dark. And basically that's a full lights out factory. So there's not a
Mm.
human in the factory anymore. It's not such a big shift as we think. Right now, if you look at some of the factories that we have maybe in Western Europe already, they are highly automated. So if you look at the factories that are maybe in lower wage countries, so maybe in Asia or somewhere else, there's a lot of people there. If we
Okay.
look at the factories in Western Europe, they are highly automated already. So it's probably 10% of the number of people that they have in lower wage countries. Is it going to go to full zero? I think it's going to be challenging because you're always going to have products going in at the beginning. There's going to be issues with the machines that need to be solved. I mean, like the coffee machines, these machines in factories don't fix themselves. It actually
Yeah.
needs to be fixed. And at the end, you're going to have all these products. You're going to have continuous line changes. So I think if you look at coffee, for example, you're now making a 500 gram coffee pack. Now it's going to be a kilo pack. Now it's going to be a 250 gram. There's going to be different wrappers. There's constant changes on the line as well, different type of coffee. You're going to need humans in the factory as well. So it's going to go from maybe 10% down to 3 to 4 or 5%. I don't think it's ever going to go to zero. And I think in the West, we're already really advanced in automating a lot of our factories today.
Cool. But here's another level to it. So dark factory pattern deployed in software engineering in something that's already a thing, like since I think successfully since December last year. That's actually was the one that I was aiming for
Okay.
because it takes the name of what you just described.
Yeah.
And it actually goes back to, by the way, I have to recommend a short sci-fi story called, I think, Autofac. I think
Okay.
so. I'll check it out, but I think it's like from 50s of the from like last century. And right now, what's happening? A lot of service companies in software development industry, such as both of ours, they're already. I mean, a lot of them already implemented this. Where it's so. Actually, let me go back a bit. So right now, you have a customer who wants a product XYZ, and then you gather your team and you say, okay, so this is the scope of work that we developed while discovering, the needs of the customer, et cetera, et cetera. And then you have front-end team, dev team, back-end team, DevOps team. So you have entire machinery of people who actually needs to deliver whatever the product is. So with Dark Factory pattern in the AI, you have agents instead of all these teams, and they have their counterparts in the QA form that is creating this constant feedback loop,
Mhm.
returning back to the input to the agent for the specific work that is was designed to QA, and then until it reaches out the end, matching expectations fully, it does this feedback loop thing, and then it just spits out the actual product. So you have only one person, one human being involved in describing what the product is, doing the architecture. So imagining all the nitty-gritty details of the product, and then it feeds the machine. It spawns uh, agents who are looping itself until the product is actually done. So it's already happening. So
Mhm.
this gives our companies, your as well as mine, the opportunity to do more work. You have one engineer, one senior engineer who is designing the thing, and then you have the system that's actually making it without.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. And I think it's interesting. And it's really, it is possible, right? I mean, if you listen also through the engineers from Anthropic, right? They do this as well, right? And they
hmm,
build
yeah.
systems, and it is possible to build today. I think so many engineers aren't there yet. I was speaking to another engineer that I know very closely. He's been a software engineer for 20, 30 years, and he's like still very much at the beginning of this phase. Like, how much can I automate with AI right now? And he's a really, really good software engineer. So even in this world, your world and my world, I think very few people are actually at that level right now. I do think that's going to go quickly, right? I do think in a year, a lot of more companies will be there. And it's a bad thing for software developers. It is. So I think that is a job that's being threatened. But I think it's like the factories. It's never going to, I don't believe it's going to go to zero. But a lot of the manual labor in those factories is going to go away. I do agree
Yeah.
there. I mean, I remember manual testing. We used to run these large programs where we had like a team of 10 testers just running manual
Yeah.
QA testing and end-to-end testing. And I think that's, if we now look back at that, it's absurd. But still, that's how we used to develop software maybe 10 years ago.
Yeah. And 10 years ago is right now is something you can say, oh, I like to think about how we used to do it, and it was just like 5 to 10 years ago. It's like we
Uh-huh,
used to do
exactly.
it. It's already in the past, you know, distant past.
And to imagine what the world's going to look like in 10 years. And
Right.
I can't even predict what that's going to look like. So much is changing right now.
Do you have experience already that you see in the field, like when you're using AI to develop product for your customers? What was the percentage of security issues arising from this approach?
I haven't seen that many actually.
Hmm.
Right. And the reason that I'm saying is that I think you still need very good software engineers. I mean, we've all read the stories of people that build products unlovable, deploy to market, right? And basically through just backend API, you can get every single data field out of the database, right?
Mm.
Um, if you have an unexperienced software engineer building with AI, that's what you're going to get. You have all these security review skills right now that are incredibly advanced. And it's very, I think they do a really, really, really good job of actually reviewing code for all these risks and patterns that probably better than a human can do. So I think we're actually going to see if you have the right engineer with the right prompts and the right skills next to them, I think we're going to see fewer security risks and not more. But it depends on that combination, the right engineer with the right skills.
Right. Statistics, however, say that uh, I forgot how many, like I would say few dozens or several dozens more of security issues are reported right now than 4 years ago. So this is 4 year statistics. I'll dig it out and I'll send it over to you later.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, a person who I work closely with from one threat intelligence company actually came out with this statistics, and it was crazy. It was like I forgot how many new weekly, like maybe 100 or
Mhm.
200 weekly, and it was like maybe 10, 20, 4 years
Yeah.
ago. So there's definitely number showing, or rather numbers showing increase in security issues out there.
True. And I think that is the result of AI, but not why we think. If you look at all these, for example, and I love this, all these open source projects, right?
Hmm.
Take Firefox. Firefox actually worked with Anthropic on this. If you look at curl, they're getting so many security issues right now because almost everyone can take Claude Code and
Yeah,
they can run a full security review of, let's say, the curl code or the Firefox code.
true.
And a lot of people do that, and a lot of people report those issues. About 80% of those is not real, or is basically AI slop, as they also like to call it, because they're not real issues. But there is a percentage of issues that are real and have actually been around sometimes in the code
Yeah,
for 10 years or 20 years. And it's incredible that because of AI, because of the AI, how rigid and solid it is in its code reviews, it's actually turning up issues that have been hiding in the code that dozens of people have looked at for a decade, and it's been hiding. And now
yeah,
we're only finding out about them because of the AI security scan. So
that is
I think
true.
that speaks to the how well it does and how hard it is for people um, to review code for security issues. Because even in the in the open source world where we have had like, and these are two of the largest, most important projects, right? Firefox and curl, they've been around for decades. We still have security issues in them.
Yeah,
And they're being found now by AI, even after so many people have seen that code and looked at that code.
right. Uh, I have to go back to this statistics. You're
Yeah.
definitely right. It's definitely a result of some good work that AI is constantly being used by blue and red teams. Um, and there is increase in malicious work of the same kind. So now you have threat actors. This is
Yeah.
actually this was a conversation that was revolving around cybersecurity mostly, and then we
Mhm.
talked about how threat actors can actually benefit from the same thing that we are benefiting from if we are on the other side, right? So increase in the exploits that eventually led up to vulnerabilities being reported, and I'm not saying
Yeah.
reported in general, but reported on
Use.
CISA top, let's say 100
Yeah.
and whatever.
Yeah.
So, those official numbers actually grew. So that is something that we also have to take into consideration because it's not just making mistakes while coding or vibe coding. It's just
Yeah.
how good it is comparing to what threat actors are doing with the same AI right now um, you know, to break whatever you did with your vibe coding efforts.
Yeah. And I think I agree with that issue, but I think it's a bigger issue. And I've been in
Mhm.
cybersecurity for too long as well in my career. Cybersecurity is like it's almost treated as like we have to do it, but let's keep it very small because we don't have budget for it in almost every company, right? And it's painful. We're even talking about right things like in I've recently heard about a couple of critical companies here in the Netherlands, and I look at their cybersecurity levels, and it's not where I would want it to be or where I would put it if I were head of security in some of those companies. But it's hard
Yeah.
because a lot of cybersecurity, they think if we just implement a SOC and we implement a SIEM and we just have all the right use cases in there, we do a bit on compliance here and we do some education, then that's good enough. It's not, right? Because we have these threat actors on the other side, and they have AI now at their disposal, and they can do almost anything. They can do all these probes and these hacks on a technical level. The social engineering is going to go 10 times better. But even the faking of our CEOs, right? All of these social the phishing attacks are also going to go so much better. I was watching, and of course, I mean, this is LinkedIn, right? And this is crap. I was watching a LinkedIn video yesterday of friends of Joey and Chandler actually having a chat about ChatGPT that was never recorded. It was like I was watching an
Yeah.
episode of Friends, right? And that's how good it is. If you just give it enough material, but you can do the same with your CFO or your CEO. It's really easy to create a video of your CEO or CFO that says you have to make this payment right now, or to have to make a call and say that. I mean, cybersecurity is going to get so much more difficult over the next 3, 4, 5 years already. I don't think anyone is ready for that right now. So I think we're seeing more and more ransomware attacks and other attacks. That's part of what we need to worry about. I think the bigger part that we need to worry about is also the state actors. Even when I was responsible for cybersecurity, I always told my board at that time, I can do my best to protect ourselves from ransomware attacks, but I can't protect us from state actors.
Yeah.
Because if they want to get in, they are going to get in. It's almost impossible to protect yourself against those advanced attacks. We were a coffee company, right?
Hmm.
I don't think the state actors had any intent of hacking us, so we never found them. So if they were in, I don't know. But I think it's such an uneven world. You have these hackers on one side that are like experts. They are experts that have all these AI tools at their hands that have unlimited time almost. And then we have these very small security teams with 2, 3, 4 people and a small SOC and a small team, and that's it on the other side. I mean, it's not an even battle. And I think it's clear who's going to lose that battle if somebody tries.
Right. Well, I mean, you mentioned tooling earlier. That's definitely far from saying you're secured. There's
Uh-huh.
one big thing that I personally think, and I think you'll agree, big thing and link in this chain that organizations are typically missing on, and that's training of the personnel
Mhm.
to
Yep.
be aware.
Mhm.
Non-aware personnel leads to, even bigger risk of being exposed.
Yep. I agree, right? And security training is a big part of it, right? And getting your personnel there. But if you look at, I mean, everybody does these phishing attempts emails, right? To test if people would click on an email or not.
Some of them really good. It's like really good
I know.
lately.
But I
Yeah.
mean, if you start doing this in a company, you have a click rate that's maybe 30 to 40%. Right? And that's at the start, you have 30 to 40% of people clicking on an email. For the top companies that are out there with the best, and you send them advanced emails, you get 5% of people clicking, right? It's impossible to get that down to zero. It's not going to
No, for
happen.
sure, of course,
If you have
of course.
5,000, 10,000 employees, 5% is going to click on that email, that really good special email that you really forward for this one company. So it's part of it, but it's like, yeah, it's one of the defense layers that you have to get right, but it's not going to stop everything.
Yeah.
It's a critical part.
Yeah. And it's a process. It's very important to understand that it's a process. You shouldn't be expecting to be done with it, right?
It takes years, and
And
then
then
it's endless. It never stops.
and then you have to go to CFO and justify investment of something that shows literally zero return.
I know. That's the one reason why I never liked cybersecurity is it's always negative. There's no return on investment. You always have to be begging for more money.
Yeah.
There's never enough money. You can never do what you really know you should be doing to be secure enough. Yeah, it's the part that I don't like about cybersecurity. It's the political part of it.
Yeah, was that maybe one of the reasons why corporate corporate life was at some point you had enough of it and decided to do things on your own?
It was. So that this was, I made the decision about 6 years ago. I was working for JD at the time. I was the head of IT operations and security. So quite a big role. I had this big team internationally, big budget. But I'd done it for 6 years and it started to get repetitive. So we were doing the same budget again. We had this big network migration when I started, and we were doing it again 5 years later to a new provider, full SD-WAN migration. It was cool, but it felt like steps were repeating and I wanted something else. And then I started to look outside and I just couldn't figure out what I wanted to do next. I was like, I'm a CIO next. I spoke to recruiters, I spoke to a lot of interviewers, and I just couldn't figure out what my next role was. And then I found it. I actually found my dream job, which was like the coolest thing ever. And I was going to take that. I went to the interview. I had a 1 hour interview at the company and I was driving home. And then I thought, so this is the guy, this guy is going to be my boss for the next 3 to 5 years. I'm going to have to report to him. He's going to want to talk to me once a week and he's going to want to look at all the numbers. And I was like, I'm not going to go there. I can't go and work for somebody else again. I just can't do it. I'm just going to go and do my own thing. I'm going to try and do my own thing. If it's going to fail miserably, fine. But at least I can only play myself if it fails. So, and I think that's when I made the decision. Yeah.
So
It's
what did you do? Did it fail?
sorry.
Yeah, what was the first thing, first company or startup that you
Yeah. So
started?
this is when you come from corporate life, and I have this big responsible role, right, with a big team and a big budget, and you actually have the confidence that you think I'm going to do something, it's going to be successful because it was always successful in the past, and everything that I did in corporate life was successful. So I start my own company, it's going to be successful. So first one, I wanted to build my own startup. This startup, it was a marketing tool for freelancers. So I found a partner. I mean, I was the more technical CEO type role. She was more the marketing person, and we decided to build this together. We had fun. We actually built this for about 6 months, and we made every single mistake that you can probably make as a startup. We fell in love with the product. We didn't talk to people. We almost spent 2 years working on this, and we probably onboarded 20 or 30 freelancers over the period. So it was a complete disaster, but it was my big intro into entrepreneurship and building startups and
What failed,
it's done.
if you don't
It
mind me?
failed.
Yeah, but
Absolutely.
what failed, if you don't mind me asking?
I think we never got any real users. So I
Hmm.
think the marketing piece, the marketing and the sales piece is I mean, if you're running a startup, if you're running any company, right? Marketing and sales probably is the most important role that you have. I mean, revenue solves everything, right? If you have enough money coming in from
Yeah.
marketing and sales, you can fix almost everything at the back end. So marketing and sales, I think, feel we didn't get any real users. And still, for me, coming out of entrepreneurship, that's the hardest part. Marketing and sales. Just what is the product? Where do I find new leads? How do I sell it to them? How do I sell without being cringy? You talked at the beginning about all these AI outreach. emails that get sent out. I mean, I get so many on LinkedIn and in my email that are just, I mean, you can recognize them immediately. I just don't respond to cold sales anymore. So many people try to sell through cold sales, and I don't believe that works. I think that's maybe the one thing where people are promoting AI extensively
Mm.
in sales and in lead gen. I think it's probably the one area where it's going to be very, very hard to replace humans.
Yeah.
Because I mean, people buy from people.
Yeah.
If I'm going to buy something from somebody, I want to look them in the eyes. I want to know that I can trust them. I want to know that they're going to come through. I want to know that they're going to deliver, that they have the experience, that they've done this before. I'm not going to buy from an AI chatbot. I mean, if it's $50 a month, fine, right? I mean, I don't care. But if it's like a bigger amount, I'm not going to buy from AI. I'm only going to buy from a human. And I think most people are like that.
Makes sense. It kind of also boils down to maybe the reason why there's always going to be human in any part of the organization, any department, because you want accountability. AI can be held accountable. It has to have a signature, therefore, a certain weight behind its existence for any,
Yeah.
problems, issues,
And I
whatever
think
breaches
it's
of
also
the contracts. Hmm?
And you talked about the dark factory, right? And it's an interesting concept because I think this is where it's going to be painful. You're going to have this one person that puts all the requirements in.
Yeah,
Let's say that you as an agency, you're running this. You have this dark factory for software development. You have a client that maybe puts all their requirements in. It goes back in the end. You, as the owner of the agency, you're liable for everything that happened in between.
yeah,
But you're responsible that the requirements are met, that the code doesn't have security issues, that all the code went out properly, and you need to have a lot of faith in AI. If something goes wrong, well, you can blame the AI, but as
yeah.
the agency owner, I think you're responsible for this.
Yeah, but you're always responsible, whether you have 1,000 people or you have one person who is feeding the
Yeah,
dark factory system. The
yeah,
problem is, I think the problem is actually now with this dark factory thing, more pressed upon the employee who is using the AI. It
mhm,
was always on me and you as
yeah,
agency owners, but right now there's even more pressure on individuals who are replacing teams
yeah.
by being responsible for what goes into the system and whether the product is going to be right. And not to say even the cost of the tokens needed for that.
Mhm.
If you're
True.
not on like, some huge investment runway and you're like, oh, it's YOLO for me. I just like keep pouring in, and use the AI, whatever it takes. But otherwise, yeah, you're going to be responsible even more if you're an employee in the organization. We were always responsible and will be, but
Yeah.
now it's bigger pressure on them.
But we used to be responsible, but actually be able to check and audit the results, right? If I was responsible for
Sure.
finances of the company or I was responsible for an infrastructure, I could actually go and talk to the engineer. I could see the servers. I knew what was going on. Now I have this AI that I don't know what's going on. It's very much a black box. And of course we can start great reports and outputs, but it's very much a black box in what it does. And it works so much faster than I work that there's no way for me to check its work. And I think that's going to be the worrying part, and that's leading to stress for people. You can't check the work of an AI because it works 10 times, 20 times, 30 times faster than you
Yeah.
do. So how do you check that work?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. With that in mind, so we have this. I mean, cybersecurity. I can't really talk much about it, but it was in cybersec space. We're still working on it, by the way. And we had like maybe 2 years of work implemented into making this platform. And then the shift happened with CTO being tasked to automate everything that they can do. Within a week, 50% of what we did in past 2 years was already done
Wow.
in 1 week.
Wow.
I don't know what security issues there were
Uh,
at that point on, but it was amazing looking at how like literally 50% and in another week it was the entire platform replaced completely, set on the all AI.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Incredible.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know, it's happening. It's going somewhere. We'll see. Um, yeah, I actually wanted to touch base on one more thing that's kind of intertwining with all of this, and I mentioned this at the beginning. Your coaching efforts, your like, can you tell me more about this? Who are you coaching? Like, what's your area of expertise, and if I'm, who's your ICP? I think.
Yeah. So I coach tech leaders, right? So that goes from CIOs to CTOs, and CIO minus one. So that could be a startup CTO, and basically post funding, right? So they have at least, because of course there's money, because I'm not gonna, there's no money for coaching at a full startup, but let's say a funded startup to CIO of a 3,000, 5,000 people company. Because I think the hardest right now is all of these people, they come from technology. They're like you and me, they've grown up in technology, they've been software engineers, cybersecurity, infrastructure, but they grew up through that. And now suddenly they have this leadership role, and they never studied to be a leader. They never,
Hmm.
right? They know so much about infrastructure or software, but they never learned full leadership skills. And I believe that leadership is a skill, just like software engineering, leadership is a skill and it needs to be learned. The problem is you get promoted and then suddenly they say you're now a leader. Good luck with it. We're not going to tell you what to do or how to do your new job as a leader. It's just that's it. So you now have to hire people, you have to manage a team, you have to give them feedback every year, you have to recognition, you're responsible for culture. That's one part of it. But also you have to do a lot of stakeholder management. You have all these senior stakeholders that you need to manage. It's a completely different job. And they give it to you like it's your next promotion up. You were a very senior software engineer and now you're a leader. Like it's a promotion. It's not, they just give you a new job without telling you that it's a new job. So, and that's, I think what I love doing is I think I like helping people in those new jobs get up to speed as fast as they can. Because I mean, leadership you can study, you can go to school. There, I mean, there's MBAs for it, there's regular education for it, there's incredible books on it, but they take, if you want to study a lot of that, it takes a year, 2 years, 3 years. I just love helping people get up to speed so much faster, and helping them with the biggest challenges first, and then we can move on to everything else. So coaching these leaders really in their leadership skills, and making sure that they become as good in leadership as they once were in their infrastructure or their software engineering skills.
Cool. Do you have a preferred model in your courses?
Preferred model as in
Uh,
how I
pre-
work.
yeah, yeah, model, not in terms of engagement, but what are the tools that you're helping them adopt?
So I think a lot of the different, there's some very simple ones. One that I like, a lot of people that get promoted, they tend to really stick to their old job. So if you make a software engineer, for example, you make them a team lead, their fallback is I'm going to go back in coding. And if something goes wrong in my team with the code, I'm just going to jump right in and code. And that's a software engineer who just got promoted. I know CIOs that have done the exact same thing. So CIOs, they have this tickets coming in, nobody else in the team knows how to do it. I'll pick it up myself. I'm actually go into the technology and solve it myself. So one of the tools that I use, and I actually got this from my coach as well, it's a time and energy audit. It's just giving them an audit, let them just track their time for 40 hours in a week, and let's just to see how they did, what they've actually working on, and have they been working on managing their team, growing their team? Have they been working on hiring people, stakeholder management, strategy, managing the board, or have they been working on detailed issues? And you'd be surprised how many people actually spend 25 to 50% of those of their time on those old stuff, those
Yeah.
detailed issues that maybe they should just be delegating and not working anymore. That's one that I love to use just because it shows what people are spending their time on, and it's often not on what they should be spending time on to be a successful leader. The other one that I like to work on is stakeholder management, which for most people in technology is a difficult thing because you need to go out and it's almost like marketing and sales. Let's say you're the CIO, your most important role, I mean, your most important role is to manage the team, make sure that everything works, of course. Your second most important role is to make sure that you know all the people in the business. You need to know the head of sales, the head of finance, the head of marketing, maybe some regional directors as well. You need to get to know all of these people, understand what's going on with them, how they're using IT, what their needs are, what their wishes are. Same with the CEO. So you need to get to know all of these people really closely and build this internal network. So that's another tool that I love to work with. It's just building out a stakeholder map and be very conscious about building that network and building relationships with all the key people in the company. And those are just two, right? And it's all very much not about technology. It's really about all the human relationships.
How do you bridge the gap between I know what needs to be done, but it's not um, in my habit to do it?
It's so I think the thankful part of coaching is that people have made a decision, right?
Mm.
I mean, people only sign up for coaching if they have made a decision that they want to go from A to B, right? It's very difficult to coach people that don't see that gap and don't want to go from A to B or that just don't want to grow. So there is no point. The people that I work with have already made that decision. They say, I want to and I need to get better at my job. That makes it very easy because in the end, they are the ones. I can give them all the tools, I can hold their hands, but I can't do the work for them. They are the ones that after our discussion, we have a coaching discussion, they need to go and do all the hard work. They need to go and set up meetings with these people. They need to go and create slide decks. They need to track their time. They need to start delegating things that they maybe did before. They need to really change how they work.
Yeah. So essentially, time with work creates healthy habit of creating habit, and then you'll have a workflow deployment system that is existing by its own just by repeating
Yeah,
the
yeah,
work itself.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it depends on the person, right? Because not, I mean, different people have different challenges.
Yeah.
So it's not everybody that needs to go in the same direction or has the same. It's not that I have the standard 10-step program that people need to go
Yeah.
through. It really depends on the person. Some people have very different challenges from other people. Their company around them, their stakeholders may be different, their team may be different. So it really depends on who I coach. I mean, a startup CTO, for example, has very different challenges from a corporate CIO. Um,
I take it that you're doing one-on-ones. You're not
yes,
doing groups.
yes. I don't do group coaching. No,
Mm.
I only do one-on-one. So it's completely individually tailored to that person and what they really need for their career, their success.
Am I correct in catching this info accurately somewhere on the internet that
Yes,
you actually have a book?
I don't have a book. No.
Oh, no, it was a guide, maybe something like that.
I do have a leadership guide, which
Okay.
I think last year I did this big session about leadership,
Mhm.
which I just like doing once a year. Maybe I'm going to do it again this fall. From that, basically, I wrote everything down into this one PDF leadership guide, and it has all of these tools that I actually do use. If people are interested, they can just connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd be more than happy to share it with them as well,
Cool.
because I
Well,
think it's a lot of these exercises that I've put in there. I'm very active on LinkedIn, so people can always on Instagram as well, with more on LinkedIn. People can find me on LinkedIn, connect, send me a message, and I'm happy to chat with anyone.
cool. Cool. Do you think maybe I skipped over something that was important to go through?
Um, no, I think we covered a lot. I think the one thing that I do want to say, right, and I think that's going to be the challenge, and this is really about we talked about the leadership
Mhm.
part of it, and I think that part is going to be, I think it's going to be very interesting to see where that goes. And I think this goes across not just technology, but everywhere else as well. AI is becoming an integral part of our job. And I think for us in technology, for CTOs, but even for CIOs, it means that we used to live in a world where technology changes came every so many years, right? We had the internet, we had .com, we had mobile, we had SaaS, we had cloud, we had these big changes, but there was 3, 4, 5 years in between. Right now we're seeing like the world is different now than a year ago. A year ago, we could barely do coding with AI. Right now, we can almost build our factories. A year from now, it's going to be technology is going so fast. And as technology leaders, as CIOs, CTOs, we need to stay on top of that. And it's so different from what that was 5 or 10 years ago. So I think that's a big challenge. On the other hand, the importance of working closer together with all of your stakeholders also becomes more important because, I mean, for finance, we used to have an ERP system and that was it. That changed maybe every 10 years. Right now, finance wants to use AI and you have to be very close to them as well. So
Yeah.
both the human pillar and the technology pillar of leadership have become so much deeper and so much harder that I think leadership is becoming a much harder job than it was before. And the same then applies for the CFO as well, right? I mean, they come from the world where they have the EP with their reports. They could just trust their reports, and that was it. They had a controller, they had FP&A, and that was fine. Right now, they need to start worrying about technology, which is not something that they've ever had to worry about so much. So I think the world is changing, and I think a lot of work is getting harder and harder. And for us that are like, I mean, I live with AI, you live with AI, it almost speaks for itself. I think for a lot of people, a lot of change is coming, and it's going to be hard to keep up and to stay engaged. And it's hard work.
Yeah. This is perfect closing statement. Thanks for
Thank,
that. Thanks
thank
for
you.
that, and thank you for your time, Mark. Much appreciated. I think a lot of good stuff we discussed through and good info shared. I think people will actually enjoy going to this and potentially reaching out for assistance, as I'm sure you can be there for a lot of people with different challenges this time. So thanks again.